Okay, I don't think Dannion needs any introduction anyway. I think he said we've known each other over 20 years again. We've known each other a long time anyway.
20 years.
Yeah.
I have been in love with Dolores for 20 years.
Okay.
I have a really severe crush on her.
But I don't think he needs any introduction. But I always say he's the man who died 3 times and lived to tell the tale. But he denies that. He said he only died once and the others were near death. You want to correct me on that?
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. But anyway, I don't think very many people can say that. So you're going to talk about your experiences, and I don't think there's anybody here who doesn't know who he is, so I don't need to do any more.
A list of what the lectures. Can I see your paper? That way I can see what I'm talking about. Honey, sugar.
Okay. Okay, so you just go ahead and take it away. Showtime.
Okay, everybody take a deep breath. It's June. It's in the year 2010. It's a Friday evening in northwest Arkansas. We gather. We are in peril. We are a nation that has disappeared and a world that we do not trust. When you see your ratings down, like the Congress is at 10% and the president is at 45%, what does it translate into? It translates into we do not trust you anymore. We don't trust our banks, our religions, our institutions, our government, and rightfully so. Well, then what do we trust? We have to find something that we can trust in so we can build a new world. The one I was born in has collapsed. It has disappeared. It has gone away. But we, the people, have stayed the same. We are great, powerful, and mighty spiritual beings. We have dignity, we have direction, and we have purpose. That's it. You were chosen to come to this world, and you chose to come to this world. You were chosen because the divine architect believes that there is no one better than you to be you in this specific cycle of time, and what is happening to our universe and the world we live in. So we have to find something to trust. Well, if Dolores is a lover of Michel Nostradam, who graduated from the St. Valery School of Medicine in Montpellier in the South of France in 1507, and the queen of UFOs in the mountains, in the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas, I would trust that. So we gather tonight to focus. And we spend this weekend gathering and finding information that empower us in the decision-making process that is coming. A new world being born. The Mayan calendar. The 2012. All those things that we hear about. So my part is this. Let's start with what we're most afraid of. And let's look at reality from there. Let's take death. Because if you came and you're sitting in this room, you are interested in a perspective that helps you deal with the loss of someone that's occurring, or that has recently occurred, or you anticipate will occur. And if you're in this room, you're not afraid anymore. Own it. Take a breath. Let's get to the business of why we're here and who we are and what we're supposed to be doing. what we're supposed to be afraid of and why we're supposed to be afraid of it and wah. So I grew up in South Carolina. And I grew up as the most perfect as the most perfect, inappropriately behaved individual. And I grew up tough. I'm a big old guy, and I never had an issue or a problem in my life until I got struck by lightning. Because if I had an issue or a problem, I dealt with it at that moment. If you could take 2 punches, you had my respect, but very few could take more than 2. So I dealt with everything from that point of view. I got into looking at religion because I grew up in the South. It's like you guys. I don't have to tell you anything about Jesus. I don't have to come here and say, you better believe. And I didn't want to, I didn't like that stuff much when I was a kid. I like it less now because I know a little bit more about it. But I never could quite get it. So when I was a kid, they didn't have Adderall. And they couldn't diagnose me as being a terror. And I had to go to what was called the RA's Royal Ambassadors Weekend for Troubled Children. And they'd bring a bunch of us in on Friday, and they'd keep us till Sunday night, and they would make us believe that the world was 6,000 years old and that dinosaurs were being discovered, but if the world was only 6,000 years old, then it was the work of the devil. Now, I figured out when I saw Jurassic Park that the devil must have been Steven Spielberg. And all those geologists that keep digging up these bones, that when the guy would tell you that it was only 6,000 years old, and you could do a carbon dating test, and the Neo-Paleolithic period was 168 million years ago, and now you can do a DNA test, and you can tell you not only what age it is what it ate for the last 2 years of its life. So when they told me it was 6,000 years old, I'd already been to the Natural History Museum in Charleston and seen a Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton that was touring. So I either had to believe that or I had to believe what they said. So I listened to that for a couple of days, but what got really exciting is that they got to this part about me being guilty of what some people in the desert were doing 2 or 3,000 years ago. And I was guilty of being born, and because they were in the desert 2 or 3,000 years ago, Adam and Eve, I was guilty of what they were doing. Okay, well, the reason I was at the RA's was because I knocked out the science teacher. I was talking in class, and he grabbed me by my right ear. He took me by surprise, and I cocked him with a left, and he hit his head against the wall, and he slid down the wall. I knew I was guilty of that. But I couldn't figure out how I was guilty of what some people were doing in the desert 2 or 3,000 years ago. Now, I'm 14, okay? Now, I don't know how you guys were when you were 14, but for me, the sap was rising. So when they started telling me the Adam and Eve story, I was interested. And this is 14, this is what I heard. This woman had a snake tell her to get her boyfriend Adam to eat an apple so he could realize that he was naked. Isn't that what it says? I said, well, first thing I thought is how many women's going to be standing around when they see a snake? And how long are they planning on staying when that snake starts to talk to them? So I started to think, if she got Adam to eat an apple, then if I could find out where the original indigenous place and the source of the apple on the earth, I would know where the Garden of Eden was. So that's just about all I got out of me being guilty of the original sin. I didn't see no pictures. I didn't see no video. I wasn't there. Now, if you think you can figure a way to make me think I'm guilty based on those rules, you have made a sad mistake when I was 14, and you've certainly lost your way at 60. Because I now know you crazy. So you move past it. So I let all that go, and I just grew up tough, everybody. I played sports because I got my satisfaction because I could knock you out. And that was the way. Hey, I grew up in South Carolina in the 50s and the 60s. You had one way out, and that was sports. You know, that's what you had. Or you had service. Those were your ways. So I grew up and went to the Marine Corps, and I did that stint, and I worked for government agencies and did little contracting things. And then one day on September the 17th at 7:05 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, I was sitting and talking on the telephone. Like this. I wasn't bothering anybody. Everything was cool. And lightning hit the phone line and came down the phone line, and it hit me in the side of the head right here. It went down my spine. It welded the nails of the heels of my shoes to the nails in the floor because they were Basswegians. Everybody in the South in the 50s and in the 60s and the 70s and the 50s had penny loafers or Basswegians. The heel is nailed on. If the nails in the heels of those shoes had not been over the nails that were in the floor, that grounded those shoes as that lightning passed through me, I would have exploded. But I was at the right position holding that phone. It welded the nails of the shoes to the floor. And it threw me in the air, and it threw me up, and it bowed my back and held me and then slammed me back down on the bed. I was dead for 28 minutes. Was completely paralyzed for 6 days, partially paralyzed for 7 months. It took me 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself. I won't tell you that that wasn't a hard row to hoe. And I won't try to tell you that those next 4 years, it took me 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself. I went through this whole deal of what it's like to be humiliated and depressed and what it's like to be in despair because all I did was wet myself and lie in a bed and lose 55 pounds. But I had a near-death experience. Now, put this in perspective. It's 1975. There is no such thing as the word near-death experience. Dr. Raymond Moody, you wonder why I'm sweating so much? It was that cup of coffee. And it was good to me, too. So, Raymond Moody had not written his book, Life After Life. So this experience that we all know so much about now didn't have a name. No one talked about it. I'm 25 years old, and I had one. And I went through what is now known as a near-death experience. And I think mine is one of the most studied because of the details and my knowledge of the near-death experience. They just didn't take into consideration that I'm obsessive, compulsive, dead or alive. So I would be doing a study on being dead. I can't help it. I would be studying the tunnel and the being at the end of the tunnel and all this blue and silver and the lights, and I'd be trying to understand how that works and how it operates, because wherever it is you are when you played sports, or you were fighting all the time, or you were in the Marine Corps, wherever you were was wherever you were. And you dealt with it. You didn't deal with it out of fear. You didn't deal with it out of, well, let's hope, or put your head in the sand. You dealt with it. And I had that personality when it came time to deal with it. It's the same personality I'm trying to give you. No one dies, everybody. A part of you will pass away. But nobody dies. It will never, ever happen that you will cease to exist as a spiritual being. It will never happen. Well, where do you go then? I would negotiate my life insurance payment. Why am I paying for something that's not going to happen? And next, what would happen if you were Dannion Brinkley in 1975 and you had an experience that you lifted out of your body, that you looked and you watched your body lying below and you watched the people working on you, and you're so disinterested in it, it's not like a big deal, except it's full with people with color. You know, this thing worried me. When you lift out of your body, the first thing you're going to do when you let that last breath out is you're going to look down and look at your body, and the next thing you're going to think of that is, what in the hell was I thinking when I decided to get into that thing? What in the world was God promising me for me to be that crazy? Okay, the next thing you do is you're going to see that everything around you is alive. It's alive. Now watch me. I had this plant. Sandy had this plant, and it was called a tie plant. It's like a little stump you'd get in the 70s, and you stick it in the ground and water it, and it'd grow into a plant. Well, I hated it. Because when I'd come down the hall, I'd break a leaf on it or knock a leaf off of it, and then I'd have to turn around and hide it so I didn't get caught. You know the things about what makes women mad at you? You know, I know it's a science. So I could see that this plant was caring about me. This plant was paying attention. And it had a beautiful electric, cosmic, energetic existence. Red, orange, blue, green, indigo, and violet. And like pastel colors that were the shimmering background that I have never seen in this plane of existence. Those colors. But they exist, and they're more brilliant and more beautiful, and such clarity and softness and encouragement. You know what art is supposed to do to us, and based on how the color is. And when Tommy, who was working on me as the corpsman, and Sandy was sitting there, the interaction between two of them was beautiful. I could see through them. They weren't like this. I could see through them. And there were these beautiful arrays of color. And as one would speak, this energy would go and surround the other one. And then the other one would react to the words. And then the conversation would go back. I didn't have one of those energetic light things around me. But I wasn't smart enough to know that I wasn't alive. I was too interested in what was going on to realize that I had already begun what is now known as the transition from this world to the next world, or for some a term called death. So let's bring it a little tighter into definition about death. If the great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being with dignity, direction, and purpose, which is who you are, and in the last 15 minutes of this conversation, I will prove it. 5 things. 5 simple things, just sentences. And you're busted. So what you have to do is you have to look at exactly where we are now. Take a breath. And find a place of why you are listening to me talk. Take a breath. Think of why you're listening to me. Can't be because you're afraid of death. You wouldn't have come. Think about it. If all your friends and you were saying, well, what are you going to do on Friday night, Gladys and John? Well, hell, we're going down to the Embassy Hotel and listen to a guy talk about death for 2 hours. You want to come? How many of your friends would have come with you? Think about it. Think about it. Great, powerful, and mighty spiritual beings with dignity, direction, and purpose, and I will close that deal on you where you have no escape from the fact that what I'm telling you is true. So let's get back to what we think will die. See, I always remember where I am, everybody. But if you set an intention like I asked you to do, and only about 25% of you did it, and so I'll have to do it again in a few minutes. You must set an intention so that the part of me that's talking to the part of you hears your unique message. Your unique vibration of what I say that serves you. You have to have a reason. Most people think it's being afraid of death. You would not be here if you were afraid of death. So come up with a reason for why you're sitting here. So that whatever's divine in me and what is divine in you can, in a place and a level of consciousness, meet. And we get from each other what you came here to find based on the ability to be able to get to that place because you set a reason to hear it. Nobody dies. Well, we were sitting earlier and Rebecca and I were talking with Dolores. Where's Rebecca? Right there. And she said, well, what do you mean? You mean you don't die? And Dolores says, no, you don't die. I said, well, those leaves I had to rake up before I left to come here in the front yard because Catherine told me they were dead. Because when I put them in that trash bag, they were dead. So something does die. So let's define what it is. What seems to happen when a spiritual being leaves a physical body? It tends to decompose, put it in a box, and put it in the ground. And that's you. You know how crazy that sounds? That's crazy. And if we're lying in a coffin in the ground because we got to stay there till Jesus comes back and raises us all from the dead. Well, think of this. I hope I got a backhoe when he gets here. I'll be digging them suckers up for him left and right. But I promise you this, if you know what I know, there is no way you want to take this with you over there. I promise you this. So let's see what's real and not real. How many people think I'm hitting the top of this podium? Don't anybody raise their hand. Physical. You never touch anything. Ever. That is an electrical discharge between the atoms in my hand and the atoms in this wood. I have never touched it. Why does my hand turn red and why does my hand sting? Because I was hitting this. It is completely impossible for me to have been able to touch this. That's basic physics. Basic physics. So you have to think sanely when you've been dead, everybody. You can't have faith in a lot of stuff that will fail you. Because the faith that I had to have in the medical system was that I had 6 months or less. If I'd have believed that, that's probably what would have happened. But I don't believe none of that. If you take an electron microscope and you take an atom and you put an atom under an electron microscope and you look at that atom, which is a bunch of these and a bunch of these combined, is 94.6% empty space. 94.6% empty space. So reality, physical reality, will never be more than 5% of reality, no matter what. No matter what. So what's the 94.6%? It is your connection to the divine. This is science. You can believe whatever you want to believe. This is undisputed reality in 8th grade physics. And when you add theoretical quantum mechanics, using chaos and string and the variable theory as your ground base, and you do it, it's even more real. Except if you add all of that stuff to it, it tells you that whatever you're doing is looking back at you at the same time you're doing it. You're sweeping the floor, where the broom and the electrons and the molecules within the context of that broom and that sweeping the floor is paying attention to you. It's watching how well you're using it to sweep. Quantum physics. So that 94.6% is all that really matters. Who am I there, and where am I there, and what does that mean when I'm there? Well, you are a great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being. You have dignity, direction, and purpose, and you operate there in your 94.6%. You are a spiritual being. You operate there. They call it dark matter now. It used to be empty space. The universe is a vast, enormous, empty space with some planets floating in it based on gravity. Now, how many of you believe that? The only time you think about gravity is when you got to pull the scales out from under the cabinet and get up on them. No one knows how gravity works. No one. Gravity. If you get on top of the Empire State Building and you have a BB in this hand and you have a bowling ball in this hand and you turn them over at the same time, if there was any such thing as gravity, the bowling ball would hit first. What happens? They hit at the same time. They fall at 32 feet per second per second. That means gravity could be measured and applied like electromagnets that create transformers that we now use in alternating current to light this. So see, what we've always believed in, everybody, is really not how it works. So now they have something that's called dark matter. And you measure it in colliding neutrinos. That creates a reaction called an exoninosphere. So if you want to know what God feels like and you want a scientific identity of God, look up neutrinos. Pay attention to antineutrinos. That means that it can leave this dimension, go into another dimension, and return from that dimension intact back into this dimension. And you can measure it. So is there a possibility that there is another world that people can travel to? Basic physics proves it today. It's called a neutrino. It's so important of a miracle of discovery that some couple of French boys and a few Swiss, a few guys from Belgium, spent $17 billion to build a collider in a place called CERN in Switzerland to take trillions of electrons and collide them together to produce a neutrino footprint. And you know what they're calling it? They're calling it the discovery of the God particle. They're calling it the source of the Big Bang Theory. That you can reproduce an energy that holds the universe together and that is 94.6% of us. And that's real tonight. So the part of you that will die is 5%. And what happens to the 94.6%? It reconnects to the universe. Your consciousness stays. Not as you are, like I am Dannion Brinkley, but as you are as that spiritual being. Take a breath. Stay with me now. I haven't asked you to give me another intention yet. So there's no pressure. Take a breath. And so what happens to that person, that being, once it lifts up and realizes that there is beauty and that a plant is paying attention to me and it's sympathetic to me because I am in pain and I'm in a world that I could see how it existed? Well, I went from a non-flower caring about person to I don't park on grass. If I see a flower a flower bed or something that someone's done, I stop and I appreciate it. I send it my love because I know now it's sending me back love. I don't see those things as I see them, but not as clear as I'm describing 35 years ago. I'm 60 years old. But I have survived impossible odds to get up from the dead and to tell you what I'm telling you. I had brain surgery, I had open heart surgery, and brain surgery, and heart surgery. And I had 3 near-death experiences. 1 death and 2 near-death. The 3rd heart surgery, I was just out. And I woke up like everybody else. I had hand surgery, and I was just out, and I woke up like everybody else. But the lightning strike, the open heart surgery, and the brain surgery were dramatic events. Same thing's going to happen to you. If you pay attention to me, you're already preparing. Because why would I be here telling you this? Because there's a rule that's in the system that I will describe to you that make, if I was lying to you, that I'm insane. And I like y'all a lot, but not as much as to identify my insanity on a tape. So when you move into this world of the 94.6%, what happens is you will generally realize that there is something happening, but it's not that you're dead. When they loaded me in the ambulance, I figured I better go with the lump. I was somehow attached to it, but I wasn't really attached to it. And I was really happy I wasn't in it, because when I left it, it was paralyzed. It was burning like I drank battery acid. And I was blind. Unbelievable pain. So wherever I was better than where I left. And I figured I better go, in case they threw it in the garbage can. I might want to come find it. So I get in the ambulance. I was really curious about all the stuff in the ambulance, everybody. I'd never been in the ambulance before. And if you think you would know it all now, wait till you're dead. You will be curious. All these little drawers, and they sticking these needles in me, and the guy's talking on his headset, and they're calling the hospital. I'm kind of watching it in slow motion, because it's not as important to you as you would think it was when you were alive. Okay? And then I heard him say, "He's gone. He's gone." And I thought, gone where? The lump's here. You're here still yapping away, and I'm still here. Who's gone anywhere? And I look over his shoulder, down at myself, and the first thing I thought was, I always thought I was a much better looking guy than that. I looked a little crisp. And then this sound goes like a series of chimes. And there was a melodic tone like a Tibetan bell. And I could feel myself being pulled. And I'm checking it out, but it's a comfortable place. There is nothing scary, anybody. There's nothing. In a moment I'll tell you about a spot you have to be careful, but we're going to correct that for most of us tonight. We'll correct that tonight. But it's a comfortable feeling. It's a place you already know. And you move down this tunnel, and it's like an onion. It's unfolding in light and color. Whether you're unfolding or not, like layers of an onion, it's like it's the process. And you're put in the flow, and you're being pulled through the flow. And it's a wondrous feeling because you feel yourself letting go of stuff. Things aren't as intense or have so much value, and it's the journey. It's the journey to the light that becomes important, not anything you left behind. It's this journey and this beautiful, divine, spiritual curiosity of what's there. We're playful as spiritual beings, everybody. We're playful, and we're loving, and we behold wonderment. What they going to do, kill us? Well, that crap ain't going to happen, so, think about it. That's crazy. So you get to the end of this tunnel. When I got to the end of the tunnel, I'm checking it out. It's this silvery blue place. It's wondrous. I'm a part of it, and it's a part of me. You have this awareness. And I looked down at my hand, and I didn't see it at first. And then out of this blue silver mist, my hand appeared. And if you look at your hand underwater, your fingers look longer. Okay, you put your hand underwater and you're saying your fingers look longer. Well, it looked like that. I was watching and I was wiggling my fingers and I could see it, and it wasn't this hand. It was a hand like having on one of those Michael Jackson gloves. It's sparkly and shimmery and translucent and illuminating. It's beautiful, like watching a Tesla coil, but in slow motion. And then I sensed this presence moving toward me, this being. Remember, this is 1975. Where would I have ever heard of any of this? Nowhere. And I sensed this being coming, and the feeling that I got was this. Do you know the difference between getting caught by your father or your grandfather if you did something wrong? Your father, he's going to beat your tail. Your grandfather, you're going to have to listen to it for about 15 minutes, and when it's all over, you can probably still hit him for a quarter. Well, it's like granddaddy's there. You busted, but it's, everything is chilled. It's going to be okay. This being's all right. All I wanted to know was where them streets of gold was at. They say the streets of heaven are paved in gold. Well, I looked diligently. I won't say that every word in the Bible is the absolute truth, but you can bet I asked everybody over there where they were, and they all just laughed at me. So what happens at that moment? We all hear that there is judgment, and everything is written in a book. And in that book, you're going to be judged by God. Hallelujah. Well, there is a book over there. It's not called a book, it's called records. And here's what the key is, everybody. There will come a time in your life when you lift out of your body and you go down that tunnel and you come into this place of light. You'll see all your relatives. You'll see all your pets, parakeets and dogs and chickens and cats. Anything you've ever loved or that's ever loved you will be there. Everything comes to celebrate. You'll return. To let you know what kind of kid I was growing up, I've been over there 3 times and nobody's come to see me yet. Take a breath. Do you notice it took me until right now to get you guys relaxed? Watch yourself. Take a breath. Look at you. Friday's off of you. You're now in my zone. A place about a loving focus on divinity. The methodology and the system by which you leave this world. And the beauty of it. and a celebration of a life lived. That's the key. You will have a panoramic life review. You will see your life pass before you in a 360-degree panoramic. You have missed absolutely nothing in your life. You know how many hairs was in the nose of the doctor that pulled you from your mother. You know every bottle, every label, every word ever said. When they take you home, you will know every leaf on every tree and how many it is. You'll probably count a few hairs on your daddy's head, for a casual afternoon of mathematical enjoyment. And you will see that entire life pass before you like a hologram. You will have missed nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then you'll watch it from a second-person point of view as if you were your very best friend, looking at the choices that you made in your life and why you made them. And then you will literally become every person that you ever encountered, and you will feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person. Well, what you have to deal with then is responsibility. Because if you're going to be every person that you ever encounter and you're going to feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person, ain't nobody died for nothing about you. And you're going to be responsible. You are responsible for your actions and your deeds and your reasons in the Panoramic Life Review. And here's the coolest part, judgment. Who judges you? You do. Who knows more about you than you? And you think about how busy God would have to be if it was just in the veteran community in America, knowing that 62,000 veterans pass from this earth every 30 days. 62,000 American men and women who serve this country leave this world in hospitals, in VAs and nursing homes and homes every 30 days in this country. And most of them leave alone. Interesting thought about responsibility, huh, everybody? Take a deep breath. So when you become every person that you've ever encountered and you feel the direct results of your interaction between you and everybody, you are responsible. You're going to feel the good and the bad. And you're going to understand what it was you did and why you did it. Think about whether there's a fair and just universe. Hitler has to be every one of those 6 million people he killed. Jeffrey Dahmer has to be all those guys he ate. Every evil genocide warlord is going to have to be every one of those persons. And you're going to have to be every person. So what does the near-death experience teach you? Be good. Be respectful. Knowing you're going to be that person. Typical example. How you will judge yourself is this. If God couldn't come today and God sent you, in the life you just reviewed, what difference did God make? Breathe. I love it when I watch. Now I have about 60% of you taking deep breaths. You notice I watch everybody on every row. Breathe. If you tensen up, you block your breath from flowing and you guard against receiving the information at the level of consciousness that it either is of value to you or it is not. But you will not perceive it if you're not breathing. When you get frightened, you shut yourself off from the access to the key of life. It's called breath. When you get scared or something frightens you, what do? You stop breathing. Well, whatever happens, you got it coming. You have stopped the divine flow of life from yourself by being afraid and being tense. If God couldn't come today and God sent you, in the life you just reviewed, what difference did God make? Well, how many people in this room has ever been hugged by me? Okay, a lot of it. Am I the greatest living hugger on the earth? Now watch. Let's put it into focus. Who am I really hugging? Me. If God couldn't come today and God sent me, in the life I just reviewed, what difference did God make? And I'm going to wrap you in my arms, and I'm going to hug you with all the love that one person can give to another. Because when I get on the other side and I become everybody I ever encountered, I got 200 million hugs I got to go through before I even have to deal with any of the crap I did. Kidneys, everybody. Kidneys. So that would come to another part of my life. I'm a hospice volunteer. And I've been a hospice volunteer for 33 years, and I have more than 26,000 hours at the bedside. And I've been with 1,800 people within days and hours, and I'm dying with 2 people today on the phone. I'm walking a guy through the loss of his father, and another girl and a guy with the loss of their mother. I'll lose one tonight. And I'm walking them through it so they do it the right way, and they handle it. I'm a hospice volunteer. Well, why? Because if God couldn't come today, and God sent me, and those veterans who are living and who are leaving this world alone because they've alienated their families, because what war does is some serious stuff. And I'm there. So if God couldn't come today and God sent me in the lives of those veterans, and I am one, then I'm there. And I'm talking to them and I'm listening to them. And I built the Twilight Brigade. It's one of the largest end-of-life care programs for veterans in the history of the United States of America. And my almost 6,000 people, we've been with probably 19,000 veterans and have probably accrued more than 750,000 hours at the bedside. So the story that I'm teaching you and the program that I'm giving you, I live it every day. And if I'm going to be you in a Panoramic Life review, and I'm going to be you, would I not be telling you the truth now? And the fact that I've been through 3 of these experiences, and I have more than 26,000 hours at the bedside studying death. Take a breath. You're pondering now. What if it's really true? It's true. Or I'm condemning my own self. Do I appear that stupid to you? So, once you get through your Panoramic Life review, you're not you anymore. You know, you're something far cooler than you ever thought you were. You're a great, powerful, mighty spiritual being. You have dignity, you have direction, and you have purpose. You will go to a crystal city. In my Father's house there are many mansions. If that were not so, why would I say that? That's what the Christ said. I don't know if Jesus said it. They say in the Bible that Jesus and the Christ said it, but those 2 names have varying degrees of interpretation to me, okay, but I know it's still true. Who Yehoshua ben Joseph was and who the Christ was, historical Jesus and the Christ consciousness that I think permeated and existed at that same time, to me are 2 different things. I think one symbolizes more that direct nature than most other personalities that we would know of. But nonetheless, it's how it happens. So you go back to where we don't all come from the same place, everybody. And if you look at it like in the angelic order, there's 178 different kinds of angels, from cherubs to Sephirids. And we are like that too. We come to the earth as teams. We find like-minded and like-conscious people, and we set an intention to achieve a goal. We migrate toward causes and events because they affect directly upon our lives, because we believe that God couldn't come today and God would send us. We would know what to do and we would be there to do it. You have chosen to live at a time of complete transition from one level of consciousness to another level of consciousness. From the fossil fuel world to another world. This Gulf oil business will guarantee that self-observation of what we use fossil fuel for and what the system that's created, because without fossil fuel you will have no plastics, half the food that you eat You know, if you look at the food that you eat, it has oil in it. It's a petrochemical, has a preservative or some form. All that will have to change, or we'll have to find another way to do it, or we have to recycle the crap we already made. That's reality. Because you certainly won't be eating any Gulf shrimp anytime soon. Today, what normally would be 20 tons of Gulf white shrimp. 20 tons. It's 400 pounds. Breathe. Don't freak out. We're great, powerful, and mighty spiritual beings with dignity, direction, and purpose, observing where we are in our mental place about our physical life. 5%. We know that when it comes down, we're going to judge ourselves. If God couldn't come today and God sent us in the life we just reviewed, what difference did God make? Okay, I know what's next. I've been there and I've studied it. So when I'm sitting at the bedside of that man and woman who served this country, I know when I have my life review based on what I understand about the process, that if God couldn't come today and God sent me in the life I just reviewed, I have 26,000 hours of being godlike. Because I was there. I think that's pretty slick if you ask me. What I learned about hospice is this. You teach best what you most need to learn. The meaning of life. You teach best what you most need to learn. I needed to learn two things. Patience, and when it wasn't about me. Hospice. You have to be patient. And in a time in my life, it's never about me. It's about them. And I know where they're going, and I can watch them, and I can listen to what they're feeling, and I can talk to them, and I can guide them safely. I call it the Twilight Brigade, an organization that I created based on my understanding of the system of how you leave this world, studying it for 35 years. Just thetwilightbrigade.com or Dannion.com or Kinetics. Just go to Dannion.com, everybody, and come live in my world and see, and see. So what I want you to do today is you're going to have a Panoramic Life review. And I want to give you a moment in that Panoramic Life review that you can remember. Because you came here tonight, a veteran won't die alone somewhere in America. Because what you did to pay for me, and Dolores pays me, goes to the Twilight Brigade. So whether you like it or not, whether you want to get mad at me or not, you will lift out of your body, you will go down the tunnel, you'll come into place of light, you'll be talking to your granddaddy, you'll see your life pass before you. But when you get to tonight, a veteran that you don't even know feels you. Because your money's funding the Twilight Brigade. Now, you either own it or you don't. But I like this best. There is nothing you can do about it. There will be no refunds of your money. You can go home and talk bad about me, and you still made sure that a veteran didn't die alone in this country because you came here. Let that be the reason why you came here. Now take a breath. So we have succeeded to change our lives now, today. And you've done it. You made a mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual commitment to show up here for these days and to show up here for tonight. So that means that we have entered a place that we could call a state of grace. All right, you got the near-death experience down, right? Hello? Okay, now let's move to useful tools. Useful tools that, based on it's over there, and the system is going to work that way. What do we do over here, Dannion? What do? We do this. We think about right now. We think about what happened just now, and we give it a title. This is Secrets of the Light. This is number 3 of the trilogy. You know, most of you know Saved by the Light was me first dealing with it. At Peace was me getting to understand the open heart surgery. And The Secrets is me understanding the brain surgery. My 35-year study of death, both here and in the hereafter. So if what I just said was true about the Twilight Brigade, that means the Twilight Brigade would have to exist. And that means it would have to be in existence, and it would have to be in existence at least 15 years. And it'd have to be a 501. And it'd have to be doing this work. And it'd have to file a 990 with the IRS. It has to file its taxes, but it also has to file a 990. Well, I do all of that. So tonight, you have entered this state, knowing and realizing that this is why you came here. We're in war, everybody. They're coming home. Their families. In the NOM, 2 out of 10 made it. Today, 8 out of 10. And look how they come home. So by sitting in this room so a veteran won't die alone, and that I can train volunteers and I can grow this organization, let's say that you have entered a place called grace, that someone is sincerely thankful for your existence. Those veterans and me for sure. Grace. Webster's dictionary defines grace as the freely given, unmerited favor or love of spirit. That's a good reason for why you gave me your money, huh? Freedom, honor, integrity. I know we got to take our country back, but nonetheless, we got to honor those who are defending the failures that it is now. But its failures is because of us not being focused in our intentions of what we're trying to achieve and why we're not dealing with the issues that are allowed us based on what the Panoramic Life Review teaches you better be doing. The spiritual divine system, it does not care what you think. It has a system that it's unfolding a universe and billions of planets and stars in a cycle of systems that it does like once in our particular little solar system, in our particular little Earth and the sun, it does it every 25,920 years. We move through the precession of the equinox. We are in the end days of one of those precessions, the 2012 story that we all hear about the Mayas and the end of time and all of that. But it's based on the 260-day growing calendar. It's not based on the long calendar, the 365-day. I personally don't believe it's December 21st, 2012. I think it's somewhere around late February 2013. And I believe that March 9th of this year, we kicked into a phase so powerful and moving so fast that we had better pay attention. What can happen that could be of such dramatic importance? We see oil spills and hurricanes and floods. You see how many places there are flash floods around the country now and all over Europe? Do you know why that exists? It exists because neutrinos are building up in cloud formations. Remember what I told you earlier about neutrinos? Neutrinos are creating new forms of cloud formations, which hold more moisture. And it's happening in France. France had a flash flood that destroyed 26 people and tore up 1,000 cars because they can measure the neutrino activity. So that means there's a force moving through the universe. It's moving. And if we dwell in grace, we catch more of that energy in the 94.6% part of us that is connected to the divine. Definition B, grace. The influence or spirit of God operating in humans, regenerating or strengthening them. Isn't that the Panoramic Life review? God couldn't come today and God sent you in the life you just reviewed. What difference did God make? The freely given, the influence of Spirit of God operating in humans to regenerate or to strengthen them. Well, because you supported the Twilight Brigade tonight, does that strengthen you or does that regenerate you? Or does it give you a moment to appreciate you? It better be that you appreciate you. Because you earned it. And I'll say this again. There is nothing you can do. You already paid your money. Even if you try to cancel your credit card, you're still busted. And number 3, a virtue or excellence of divine origin. Well, you are of divine origin. I say it. And as on top of that, you are a great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being, and you have dignity, and you have direction, and you have purpose. Now feel us. It's cooler in here. You're breathing naturally. Feel the energy, everybody. It's a calmness. We are in grace. Great, powerful, and mighty spiritual beings. So when you get here, we try to understand where a lot of what our religious beliefs come from. And so after I had the second near-death experience, I started going to evangelical holy roller churches. You know, I just didn't want to go when that Sunday they was passing snakes. But any other time I needed to get there and find out about Jesus. You know, and so I watched it for about 2 years. Jesus. And I'd watch it on Sunday. Send me $5 and I will send you absolutely free the hand of Jesus. So after watching that, about 2 years, I figured out who invented fundamentalism. It was the guy who had the patent on preparation H. Now, after Sunday at church, how much of that stuff you think you're going to need by Monday morning? Think about it. I mean, there's some strain in getting down and being saved now. So then I decided to go to the Catholic church to see what them Catholics was doing. Because those were some funny people, you know what I mean? You ever talk to a bunch of Catholics? No offense intended, any Catholic in here. I got no problems with you. I know y'all weird as hell, but... So I went over to the Catholic church, you know. You told me I couldn't talk about government. You didn't say I couldn't make fun of religion. What are they going to do, kill me? So I go over to the Catholic church. You know, I'm going to check these Catholics out because y'all are just as weird as you can get. So I sit down. I said, wait a minute. These Catholics are pretty cool. They got these things to prop your feet up on. They want you to be relaxed and everything. We laid up having fun. It's all cool. And then these 4 guys come out. They got on dresses. They all got a dish rag and a cup. And they walking around this table talking to themselves. I said, well, you know, that's all right. And then they was playing this bars call-off music. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. I kept thinking the priest was going to come out like this. So here comes a guy out. He's got on 2 dresses and a dunce cap. Okay? I liked him already. Well, we stand up. We sit down. We get down. We stand up. We sit down. We get down. We get up. We sit down. We stand up. We get down. Oh. I've been there 4 minutes. So, I'm trying to hang. Then the guy with the dunce cap on, he walks up and he says, "My daddy plays dominoes better than your daddy." Or something like that. And I thought, who cares? Okay? And I was tired. So I had to think for a minute. Now, who would have invented Catholicism? And I had to rest while I was thinking about it. Well, I can tell you who invented Catholicism. The guy who has the patent on arthritis, pain formula, etc. Because after Mass, I know the first thing a Catholic does is get to the glove compartment and get a couple. Then, I'm resting. Everybody else is still getting up and getting down and having a good time. Then here comes a guy on. He's got a scarf around his neck. He's got a dress. He's got a little belt on. And he's got on sandals. And he's got this pot. And he's swinging this pot. Smoke is going everywhere. My eyes are burning. My nose are burning. I don't know what he's saying. He's talking to the air, swinging that pot. So I had to think for a minute. So I concluded that the person who invented the second part of Catholicism is the guy who invented Dristan and who has a patent on Claritin. Because when you get to the car, you got to have some Dristan, you got to have some eye drops, and you need a couple of Claritins to get that smoke out of your lungs. So why I make so much fun of that stuff is when you've been where I've been, you find many things that will test your faith. Death is one of them. But it's for sure it's going to happen. And when you embrace the concepts and you explore what death is, then you have recaptured your own life. I'm 60 years old. I'm a baby boomer. There were 77 million of us born in America and another 4 or 5 million that came from other countries. So there's 81 million of us here. 13,000 of us turn 60 every day. Every day, 13,000 of us turn 60 years old. So it's we I'm talking about. It's us. We who live in this 2012, 13, and 14 period of time, we chose to be here and we're chosen to be here. We were chosen to be here because we were the ones that the divine trust that will make a difference, that will come to programs like this, that will pull together, that will listen to the information and make concrete decisions on those information to move forward. Can there be a cataclysmic event that we'd say that 2012 would come? Is the earth going to change on its axis and shift, and what's above water goes underwater? You know, all these stories that we've heard? Well, it's happened 71 times. How do I know that? Geology. You know, it used to be myth. But if you deal, the people who've been doing geological studies and surveys in Antarctica says this happened 71 times. So do I think one's going to happen now? No. No. But do I think there's going to be a shift in consciousness? Yes. And do I think that shift in consciousness is happening now? Yes. And do I think that we are properly participating in it? Yes. Because there's a veteran somewhere tonight that you will meet when you go from this world to the next. And you will be God to that person. You will be God because you came tonight to make a difference in those lives. That's what I'm doing here. And that I have a severe crush on Dolores. I mean, if I didn't admit to it, I would be in a lot of trouble, but I admit to having a severe crush on her. She is kind of hot. Especially if you can get her to talk about Nostradamus and UFOs. Take a breath. And now that we've quietly embraced and protected, it's Tricia. Has everybody read Tricia's new book on Jesus? Tricia, I want to tell you something. It is magnificent. I'm 85% through it. It's magnificent. And why I say this is about Tricia. We all have to go and look at things that test our faith, everybody. We got to stop and quit believing in things that are not real, that we know are not real. It's not real. I think that the real Jesus and the historical Jesus deserves to be looked at. Not that it's good or bad or it's not true or it is true. I think that people need to reassess it. Okay, you need to do it because death teaches me that a lot of that stuff is not true, but a lot of it is. So by looking at that and looking at how well Tricia wrote her book, I was proud of her. I was really proud of her when I got through the first 50 pages because it's good clinical review of a historical nature of the Christ and the embodiment of who we call Jesus. So, you know, it's well worth looking into that, and I commend you. Well, you're talking about, let's see, who would be at her doorstep every day? Is that person who washed feet? That's the Indian version of Jesus. Okay, so it is well worth looking at. Now, what I did after looking at all these issues and realizing that we are in a state of time where we have to be able to make decisions. We have to set our intention, and we did that today. So in our life review, we have established a direct and concrete criteria of knowing that we would, once in your life, you will have been proven that if God couldn't come today, God will have sent you, and there will be a veteran to thank you when you reach the other side. We have dwelled in a state of grace. By Webster's Dictionary, that's what we have done. You can look the word up in Webster's Dictionary. Then we must have a concrete program to review our life by. This is what we have to have. So, number one, you have to find something that balances duality. Since we choose to come and are chosen to come, we have to balance duality. We are polarizing now. We have the left and the right, good and evil, light and darkness, genocide, evil. We have this polarization. Okay? So what we have to do is create a way within our lives that 94.6% is just as actively as the mental physical self is active in the present realm. What you think and your physical self are not separate. An emotion is an opinion. When you have an emotion, it's an opinion that you have psychologically of a perspective you have that either endangers your physical self or gratifies your physical self. That's 2 of the 5. That's 2. The physical self does 2 things, gratification or preservation. If you walk up to someone to have a conversation, it is to gratify yourself or to preserve yourself based on that conversation. When you realize that that's what you're physically doing and mentally doing automatically, then you pay attention to that as a value in how you look at your life. Does this person make me mad, or does this person make me sad, or does this person make me happy? Isn't that how you qualify? And then we have this term called sympathy. That's another opinion. Sympathy is because you think you're better off than them because you're observing a condition that you find them in, and you're not there. And when you're not there, you become sympathetic. That's an error. It won't work as a reality, structural, spiritual based on being a great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being with dignity, direction, and purpose. It won't work. So it's not true. It's not true. So it must be empathy. You must become one with them. That 94.6% of you is connected to them. Get it? You have never left heaven. It is impossible for you to be able to do it. Quantum mechanics. It's proven. Think of this. They tell us this story about this pissed off angel named Lucifer and the morning star and Satan and the devil. I mean, the boy got more aliases. I mean, think about it. He's probably been in, what did you get to go into? He's probably been in the witness protection program so many times that he's got all these names. Okay? And here's what they tell us. Well, Lucifer, the best friend of God, his most best angel, most powerful, got mad because God liked us more. Well, I thought God was making a wise decision to like me more than some angel. You know, because I'll stay here 70 years or 80 years, or as long as they let me. Where did you hear about an angel? They told you the dog was in the well. They show up to let you know you were safe to get out of the car because it was tumbling down a mountainside. They came to give you comfort when you needed it most from God. But we're here together all day. And we're here together all tomorrow. We're here together part of the next day. So aren't we angels to each other? Aren't we people who are like-minded and can cross and compare each other and talk about this stuff and be together? And think about this. If you talk to God or angels, they call that prayer. If God talks to you, they call that schizophrenia. So Isha, being at the doorstep, if it was anybody other than us, we'd have to make sure she was on Prozac. So what we have to do is we have to have a system that empowers us every day. That means you get up every day for something spiritual. Mine is that no veteran dies alone. I get up every day and a part of my life stays focused on that all day because at the end of the day, I can look back and see how much I did in honor of my divine spiritual self, dwelling in grace to make this world a better place, which is what I think God needs me to do. Okay? Then you get up and go to work and make a living. Then you get up and worry about the children. Then you get up and worry about what Obama did and who's getting blamed and the Congress. All you have to realize is why we're acting the way we're acting is we don't trust them anymore. We don't trust the government. We don't trust the banks. We don't trust the religions. We don't trust the institutions. We don't trust them. And they don't seem to get it. They give us a poll, okay, of what we think about them, which they have the lowest rating. That means we don't trust them anymore. So we're learning a way to trust us. Now let me give it to you. Ready? Everything is in Secrets. This book you can get on Amazon. That's the cheapest place to get it. The publishers tells me I'm supposed to tell you you can get it at any Barnes & Noble and Borders Books and off the website, blah, 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 but they want to charge you $14.95. Amazon's $10. It has a system in here that structures how you look at things. And then it has how you view yourself in situations. So let's look at the first one, and I'll go fast. Number one, everything's about love. If you're only looking for how much love is in any event or any situation, it's all about love, and that's what you're first looking for. That's why I hug people. I'm going to get to the point of how much love is in it when I get my arms around you, like it or not. Because I'm going to move into your energy field, and you're going to move into mine. And I'm just like the lady who's doing the aura photography. That picture that you see around you, I see it also, and I wrap myself in it, and I bring myself in that, knowing that I'm going to move through your red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, and violet, and your chakras, and I'm going to spin mine just the opposite of the way I sense yours is spinning. And I'm going to spin mine just the opposite, and I'm going to hold you. And if you guys have been hugged by me, that's the sensation that you're feeling. People say, well, that's a really good hug. Well, I know that stuff about me, and so when I get a chance to embrace someone, I'm going to do that. So when my life passes before me, I feel that place. I feel it. Now, you have to start today in finding a cause. Everything's about love. Then, second, what do you believe about your love? This is the crisis. We have been proven or taught to believe that we are not worthy and that somebody's got to come and save us from something. And we live our lives trapped in that. Okay? But that means that what we've consciously developed is the inability to place a spiritual dynamic value on our love. Because we're guilty of something. Well, think about this. If you are 94.6% connected to the divine, and that divinity is you, and you're a part of it, without any question, that's the part that you're working on. That's the part that you're focusing on. So what you have to do is believe in your love before you give it. We give our love and we sit around and wait for somebody to give it back for it to be equal to the reason why we gave it. And when we don't get it back that way, because we've never given it a value before we gave it. And what happens? We get screwed. Children don't pay you back. Your neighbors don't like it. If you want to get rid of a friend, give them $20. Ask them when they're going to pay you back. You won't see them again. So you place a value of your love before you give it. And what happens when it comes back, everybody, is you can decide how much more you want to give or how much less you're going to give based on that you believe in the divineness within you, because at least tonight you dwelled in grace. And the things that I just described about the Toilet Brigade, you're doing it every day. So once you get a belief about your love, then it's the choices that you make based on that belief system. Just like in the Panoramic Life Review, when I said you see your life from a second-person point of view to see the choices you made. For me, well, Dannion, sometimes you did really good. And Dannion, oh my God, what were you thinking? But you still get to see it that way. So if you believe in your love, your choices will be pure. They'll be more intent. And they will be in grace. And then my old faithful, prayer. How do you activate the choices? You learn to pray. So we all hear about prayer. Lord, just let me get through it. I promise I won't do it again. Lord, I swear if you just let this happen, I swear to God, hallelujah, you know. But let's look at prayer from my point of view. Prayer. Willful, conscious intent. Willful. The ability to influence through mental power. Can you think? Got the first part of prayer covered. Conscious. a knowledgeable stream of awareness. You have a knowledgeable stream of awareness that because you came here tonight, a veteran won't die alone. So his prayer's been answered, or her prayer's been answered. Intent. Concentrated attention to a specific purpose. So if you listen to those three things, and you remember, or you buy this tape, you will have watched me use willful conscious intent to deliver a value of love, a belief in yourself, the choices that you make and how they're measured on the other side. And if you look at the secrets of the light, you will see I gave 7 perspectives to view it from. I always use number 5 in secrets because it's the best one that I could come up with the way I go about in life. You know, I always better take number 5 because if I work, whether it's about love, my last point, everybody, number 5. Everything's about love. Everything's about what you believe about your love so that you can better see the choices that you're making, because if it's about love and you believe about your love, you see your true value and what you're good at in life and what you will not put up with in life based on your ability to serve. That's correct? Yes. Okay? And then it's about prayer, willful conscious intent. I always start with this. Number 5. We choose to be alive at this time and at this place and at this point in history, because never before have we had such a glorious opportunity to display our individual power and presence. Think of this. When someone gives you a gift, it is called a present. Like you are present now. The present we have been given today is right now. And this is the exact moment that we can truly know that we can make a difference. So in closing, I'd like you to take a deep breath. Close your eyes. And to the divine, in prayer, for all those men and women who are serving and defending this country here and in theater, and to all those who have served, and all those who lie in beds alone, and those who are making their transition, we give them grace this night. We've given part of our mental self, our emotional self, our physical self, our material self, and the value of our love and our belief in who we are and what we defend. And we also committed that without any question, because we gathered, many of them will not die alone. Willfully and consciously, with the highest divine intent that we could have. So it is. Take a breath and come back. Have time for a couple of questions. Wasn't I great? Questions? Come on, somebody hit me with a good one. Yes, ma'am? Okay, I'll get it. Okay, what she said was, when our loved one passes from one world to the next world, are they consciously and continuously around us? Not if they can help it. If I was in heaven, I wouldn't care what you were doing. I would see you soon. But here's what happens. A person can come back to visit, but they can usually only do it in laughter. It has to be something funny about them, something that was joyous about them, people gathering and cracking jokes about them, and remembering how wonderful they were and how funny they were. If you miss your mom or your dad or your brother and you want them around, then you think of the funniest thing that ever happened between the two of you, and then you breathe, okay, and they can come. A lot of times, parents who leave early come back. Children come back to support their parents. I mean, they have a certain amount of time that you can come, but it is really hard to slow your vibration down once you've reached that frequency of that magnitude to live in that dimensional plane. What you should do is set their place at a table. If it's Christmas or Thanksgiving, you set their place. Like for my mother, I always set her place at the table because she didn't care if you was fighting a war in Korea, you had to be home for Christmas. And if the government didn't like it, you deserted and you came home for Christmas. And she would go up there with you and talk to them about it. And she didn't want to hear anything else. So yes, they come. But you know what? We should never be in grief. Because whenever any of us grieve, everybody, it's because we're selfish. We should send them off in love and happiness. The human being does two things. It misses. You know, you will miss and being deserted, and you wish that they would stay. I mean, we do that, and we go through bereavement. We go through bereavement and grief. First, we're angry. Second, we are sorry that they're gone because they have left us. Not because it was time for them to go, but because they left us. And third, we decide what we're going to do about that desertion. And it's called bereavement. Some people become paralyzed and can't move again. Some people lose their way and cry all the time and hope that they can have contact, and they go see mediums, and they do all kinds of things to try to make that connection so they can know that their parent is okay. They're in heaven, crazy. How could they not be okay? Nobody goes to hell. If there is any such place as hell, it has to be in heaven. Remember, it's gone from the center of the earth, where it used to be, to a lake of fire, but the hell that's the lake of fire is the one that Jesus is going to throw Lucifer in when he gets back. We don't go get thrown in the lake. Okay? So where did hell as we know it and conceive of it in our religious perspective in America, where did it come from? It came from Clement II in 1307 when he read Dante's Divine Comedy. He issued a papal edict, and he designed hell as you hear it being preached. In modern-day America, it didn't become designed that until about 1370. Interesting, huh? Do you know when reincarnation was taken out of the Christian belief? 558. Until then, it was a standardized part of the historical versions of the Bible. Next question? Yes, ma'am? Would you stand up so everybody can see how beautiful you are in that dress? Doesn't matter to me. Well, if it makes Dolores happy, then if you got a question, please come up here. Come on, don't mess around. Let's go. When? And what's his name? Nothing happens. When a person has a suicide, remember, there's not, stay right here, there's not just one reason why someone suicides. Okay, it's chemical, it's emotional, it's usually PTSD and alienated everybody. And when you're in war, no one can understand it unless it's someone else that's been in war. What happens is you rest. Someone comes to get you. You're never left alone. If you kill yourself out of spite, you will go to a place that you have to rest. I would say that did he have two girls? Okay, I have him. he rested. He could not match what he had done in the military equal to living in the civilian life. He could not reconcile the fact of what he had gone through and been put through and how little value we in modern day America place on it. Looks like Gulf One because I can see a lot more smoke and a lot more like oil burning, so it had to be Gulf One. He never could relate to the girls. He could not find a way to relate to them because they didn't follow orders and they thought he was funny. See you laughing. I don't sense a sense of sorrow. Okay, I want him to be sorry he left the girls and left her to have to raise them, and then you come in as a support, being honoring what your brother left to do because you have a little guilt about it. But you stop that this minute. Stop it. He did it. They have made it because of you and because of her, and these are going to be fine girls. You need to do this for me. You need to sit down and explain to them that a lot of times people can't forget what they did in the name of this country. And they can't find a place to be appreciated, so it's drugs or alcohol or some kind of ism because they keep trying to escape to a place of safety. The girls need to know it wasn't anything that they did. They all blamed, the three of them blamed themselves more than they blamed him. They need to get over that. I'm listening to him. You know. I want his ass to be sorry. I want him to be apologetic, and so I keep opening that space, but I'm listening to him talk. And he's not apologetic. So he was really angry. And he is resting. He is not far from this level. He's staying close because he's still trying to work out the issues. He still doesn't understand the girls. But you tell them that I'm saying from him that it wasn't them. And if he could have found a way to deal with it in his own personal self, he would have never let them go. That's an apology. He would have never let them go. Bless him. What was his name? Was the reason why he did it. Remember, intention. Okay? Well, then kill every Japanese there was. You know, I would have dropped the bomb myself. When you look at the intention, he was doing what he thought what Japanese imperialism is, and when he saw what the Japanese were doing to the Americans on the islands, that's what drove him to become a Medal of Honor winner. When that happens, you have to be every one of those Japanese. Okay? There's no escape from the system. But they were trying to kill him, and he was trying to defend an attack on Pearl Harbor. Mom and Dad, an unprovoked attack on Pearl Harbor. Okay, so he still had to be each one of them, but his reason for serving, that becomes the value. And so he finds comfort and balance and harmony in that. I'm trying to create that for so many veterans. Well, it's not so much atone as it's find harmony and balance again. He atoned for it. He didn't try. He is proud of himself. Thank you. We have 2 more questions, and then you guys got to say something nice about me. And please go to Dannion, that's Dannion. Tomorrow I'm going to have a tablet. I'm going to have a tablet out somewhere. So if you're interested in the Twilight Brigade, it'll be somewhere that Dolores says. And I'll be walking around, and if you're interested, please sign up, give me an email. And I would love to start a Rogers, Fayetteville, Twilight Brigade program. Yes, ma'am? Come up here and kick her. Get right to the microphone. Start. Sometimes.
Or is it something that holds them back?
No.
Is it?
There is no such thing as that. In life, you set up, I believe, 7 times to leave. A lot of people take on a lot more than they ever think they can handle, but they get done early. Nobody wants to stay a second longer than the job they came here to do because they'd rather be back in heaven. You know, I mean, if people knew what I know about it, you know, they'd be getting the job done and blowing this popsicle stand. Okay, so they cut a deal. Like no car accident where somebody perishes in a car accident is not planned. If you've been to know somebody you lost in a car accident, if you think about the last conversation you had with them, and if you had a conversation with them about 2 weeks before the car accident, they told you goodbye. If you listened to the conversation, that's what you heard. Okay? So when that happens, this is the opportunity that a person gets to leave. Sometimes they take it, sometimes they don't. I'm having too much fun. I know that somewhere in some deal with God or the divine, I made a deal that if I didn't make a certain juncture and understanding that they would bring me there in some dramatic way because it's all about me. You know, I kill myself stylishly. That we bring that into place so that I could learn it. Now, I don't like to think about that consciously, but I know that I did. So that incident, we're all teachers, learners, and doers. That incident occurred so we learned something, they learned something, or we taught others something. Most people stay behind because they get so caught up in not believing in their spiritual self, they get a lot of times caught up in who they are and I, me. Those people stay. And they'll hang around until they kind of work it out, or other people quit thinking it's an accident, or other people being angry because somebody shot them. Remember this. Everybody's going to be everybody they ever encounter. This is a fair and just universe. I learned forgiveness because I know you're going to get yours, and I'm not going to get in the way of it. I'm going to be good, and I'm going to try to be nice to people. I'm going to apologize when I'm the perfect asshole, and which is about 14 times a day. But I'm going to give back that love and that respect to it. So don't get in the way. Now, let me ask you one more question. This is someone who is like one step removed from your family. This is not a family person. This is someone you know.
My father.
Okay.
He just died sooner than he was supposed to.
Wait now. His agony was leaving your mother. That was the agony. And the trouble that he had when he thought about it was he had not prepared everything that he wished he had gotten prepared for, because he left that load on her as opposed to organizing it like he always said he did, but he really didn't. Right? I have him. Okay. Now, he's sorry about that. But let me tell you something that happened. That incident brought a family that had begun to drift apart back together. And all the stuff that happened with all of you dealing with your mother gave you a way to forgive it. And you rallied around it. True? So, he's happy about that. But he's sad about not being as honest about handling his affairs and what he said he was doing, knowing that he handled everything as opposed to teaching her. I can hear him. And he's sorry. But he's proud of you guys. Let me ask you something. Is there it's like a name like Wilner? Willer or Wilner. Don't push yourself on it. I hear a presence that's. Don't go crazy now. Don't stop breathing because you turn to stone. No. Well, here's what I see. And in a minute you're going to pass out. And I'm going to have to run up and touch you like being filled with the Holy Spirit. Then I'm going to pass the hat. I'm going to praise Jesus and glory. I just have a voice. It's Wilner or it's not Wilma, but it's like Wilner. And they're talking. So just do this for me. If you hear that name in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm pretty sure it'll not be Wilbur, but it's more like Wilner. Wilner. Just pay attention. If it's a person, it's not the person that matters. It's the situation that you find yourself in when you hear that name or see that sign or see it wielded. Because it's not your Father saying it to me, but it's someone equal in the power and presence of Him saying it. And it'd be another one of those we all learners, teachers, and doers. And it'll be a moment like that. Mm-hmm. And ask your sisters.
That's my sister?
Sure, because it's something to do with your dad. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
One last question? So we'll take 2.
There's only time for one more. Okay, that's it then.
Okay, got it. Ask a question.
Addicts like alcoholism, some people are turned more to it than others. I have a granddaughter.
What's her name?
Haley Beth.
Okay.
And she started drinking at home when she was 13. 2 years ago, February the 21st, I attended her graveside service at the age of 23. My daughter-in-law is stuck. She goes to the cemetery every day.
She blames herself.
Is there anything that I can do or say? I've tried to talk to her. I call. It's like when Haley was alive, I would call, and she'd forget to tell her mother I called. And later on, I said to her mother, she said, well, I never got the message. And I said, well, messages are like money in the bank.
Now wait now. Listen to me. You're shifting your psychological presence. Number 1, Haley was an indigo child, and she never could adapt to really understanding how crazy we had all gotten spiritual. She discovered an escapism because of alcohol, and that was peer pressure that began it. And then because you have another relative in the family who is an alcoholic, she became comfortable with his behavior was acceptable at family reunions and dinner and places, and it became acceptable behavior. And if he could drink in the house, so could she. Okay? And what she was she could not adapt herself to the world as we think it is normal because it doesn't have a spiritual foundation. It has a material foundation. As to where your daughter is, your daughter-in-law is based on this, you are honoring your son trying to be protective. But when you say that you didn't, that Haley wouldn't tell her when you called, that's you trying to figure out a way how you didn't call. And the 1 or 2 times when you did call, that happened. Okay? I believe that how Haley treated you, how you went from the good guy to the bad guy and there was nothing you could do to help her, is what you're dealing with. And you're watching the helplessness of your son. Okay? What matters is this. You forget what you didn't do because you got angry with him because they were letting her become the way she was doing, and you got angry and you didn't call. And then when she called, you reacted to her. Let that go. That has nothing to do with anything. Let it go. You're free of that now. When she goes to the graveyard, then you want to know when you can go a couple of times a week with her. Because what you can do now as mom is be there with her, not talk. Be present and let her talk. Because what she's doing is she's so guilty. And I'm not sure, my senses don't tell me, but it's one of these. I think that she's mad at your son for what happened to Haley. I don't believe that it's true, but this is her escape. But you need to go with her this time now. Don't get mad and not do it. She's going to go every day. You want to go twice a week. And you want to just be present because you want to see what she's doing. And I would get me a tape recorder, a digital tape recorder, and I would take it just in case Haley decides to talk. It's called electro voice phenomena. You know, you might as well do a little study as you help this daughter-in-law get past it. No parent ever gets caught past losing a child. It'll never happen. But if you're present, and it's number 5 in secrets, then this is the time that you can make the greatest difference. Haley will be back within your lifetime. She'll be back. But let go of the part I told you to let go of because you're not responsible for it. You reacted the way a grandparent would react, especially with your relationship with your daughter-in-law.
Well, Haley and I had a special bond. And I knew she was different, but I didn't know about indigo children then, you know?
Indigo.
But I do now. And I go to the cemetery, but I never can catch her there. So you're saying I should
Call her up.
And say, when you're going,
I'd like to go.
I'd like to meet you there.
No, I'd like to go with you.
I'd like to go with you.
And why I say go with you, then she determines the process. Never when you're pulling in a place, when you're going to help someone, you put yourself adjunct. You put yourself as a support system. And then you create the responsibility for them in their intention to say, well, meet me at the house or meet me there. You let them create the procedural nature of the process. You let it be them because they say, well, I don't want you to go. Then the same energy we're trying to create in helping her will be put into place because our intention was about helping her have someone to talk to eventually to work herself through it to see what she needs to get through. Once that intention in place and you follow that action, the divine takes care of it. We don't have to fulfill everything we say. We just have to keep that intention and we have to hold true to it and we must act upon it. We put it in our willful conscious intent. Or ask her, when does she go? But always you would like to go with her and let her decide it because that kicks the nature of the program in place.
Thank you.
Inshallah.
They say this woman has been trying to get up.
Well, just give her the microphone. She didn't have to get up. Just pull the thing out. There you
We're
go.
running out of time.
Come on, they're bringing it to you, honey. I think this is the last question. I mean, there was
Okay,
2
he
more,
said
but
you got a little bit,
I'll quit when you
couple
tell
more
me.
minutes, and that's it. He's running out of tape.
She's got it.
Okay,
She's got it.
thank you.
My nephew, who had mental problems,
His name?
his age, he passed on. He committed suicide.
No, wait a minute. Tell me his name.
Oh, Richard Winslow.
Got it. Okay.
And he relied a lot on my son and my husband. And they both passed on. And after my son passed on, within 3 months, he committed suicide.
Your son and Richard?
No, my son died naturally.
Okay, 3 months after Richard.
Yes, but my husband and my son was his rock in his life. He was closer to me than his mother. He never bonded with his mother, but he did bond
So
with
you
me.
cook good pies. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Now, when I feel like I let him down, that I could have done more for him. At the time, I wasn't ready to give him the support he needed.
No, you did. Wait, stop. I don't want to argue with you about it.
Okay.
Listen to me.
Yes.
People have free will. The support you gave was he did not place a value upon it.
Yes.
Not you. Anyone in this room who knew you would have given it everything you could. And now you blame yourself. Okay, will you stop it? Because I'm coming down here to give you a hug because you didn't do anything. And because you were as good a mom to him as you were to your son and your husband, don't you blame yourself for it.